Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the fizzy, sugary and delightfully chaotic world of the 1950s, where rock and roll was king and teenagers discovered a little something called Coca-Cola. But let me tell you, it wasn't just a drink, it was a lifestyle choice, a full-on addiction complete with secret meetings and clandestine slurping. Get ready for a trip down memory lane, one that's as bubbly as a can of soda, and just as likely to give you a sugar rush. So before you get comfy, take just a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this quirky little corner of the internet. I'd also love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from and what kind of snacks you're enjoying. Now, dim those lights, switch on that oh-so-soothing fan for background ambience, and wrap yourself in blankets like you're preparing for a cozy movie night. Let's take a second to think about those 1950s teens. Did they really sip Coke as if it were liquid gold? Were they secretly meeting in basements, concocting wild soda combinations like mad scientists? How many awkward first dates revolved around sharing a Coke at the local diner? And let's be honest, could you handle a dance-off at the sock hop after chugging down a couple of those sugar bombs? And just like that, congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 1955, the air smells like popcorn, Elvis is shaking his hips on the radio, and there's a bottle of Coca-Cola waiting for you on the kitchen table. What could possibly go wrong? In the post-war 1950s, America was buzzing with optimism, families were growing, and guess what? Coca-Cola was like the holy water of this new consumerist paradise. From the moment those iconic bottles hit the market, kids were practically lining up as if they were waiting for the release of the newest iPhone. But did they know they were trading their sanity for a sweet carbonated buzz? Spoiler alert, not even close. The love affair with this fizzy elixir was nothing short of incriminating. Picturing soda-sipping teens cruising down to the local diner, slicked back hair and leather jackets adorned with the Coke logo, it's like a scene out of a 50s movie that became an entire cultural phenomenon. Can you imagine the parents? As they dived into their own nostalgic pasts, they surely raised eyebrows at the sugar consumption levels that hovered ominously like sugar-fueled clouds over the nation. But instead of caution, there came encouragement, and before long it didn't just become a drink, it morphed into a rite of passage. Teenagers did what teens have always done. They rebelled. And what better way to stick it to the establishment than by guzzling sugary sodas that gleamed like little red flags of freedom? As the competition heated up, the Cola Wars began, though it was a surprisingly friendly rivalry, at least on the surface. Teenagers swapped drink brands like clothing, but choosing which cola to sip, or for those adventurous romantics, which to share on the school bus became an act of loyalty. In the halls of high schools across the country, whispers of Coke or Pepsi became equivalent to a youthful initiation ritual. It was like a social hierarchy, with Coca-Cola at the top, reigning supreme with its mystique and allure. So what if it was nothing more than sugar, water and a dash of caffeine? It was fizzy magic. And let's not forget the legendary advertisements, where a simple bottle of Coke danced across the screen, accompanied by sweet tunes that dug into your brain like a catchy jingle. Who could resist? You'd take a sip and suddenly find yourself smiling like a model in those glossy magazine ads, even if your hair probably looked more like a bird's nest than a commercial hairstyle. It didn't matter. Those bubbles tickled your nose, and the taste hit your taste buds like a sparkler on the 4th of July. Was it really a drink, or had Coca-Cola found some way to bottle happiness? But the Coke craze took an even darker turn. As the kids downed their cola, parents began noticing curious side effects. The once charming raucousness transformed into questionable bathroom schedules and chaotic sugar-induced energy bursts. Can we get a moment of silence for the family car? Parents would sigh while their teenagers argued about personal preferences and who got the last sip. Can you imagine? They thought, surely we can't survive off this magic sugar potion forever, right? Ah, but logic, like the last drop of soda in a bottle, fizzled away with that one sweet sip that drove everyone nuts. The 50s were a whirlwind of soda pop and drive-in movies under the stars. As teens flirted over strawberry milkshakes and Coke floats, secretly guzzling their carbonated delights, the invention of teen culture was conceived right inside those diner booths. While watching Elvis on the small screen with heads bopping along to the beat, the world was changing, and Coca-Cola was at the heart of it all. Literally. The cultural shift that Coca-Cola brought about wasn't merely a fizzy drink, it was an identity. It symbolised freedom, youth, and a taste of modernity. Neighbourhoods filled with dinner parties revolved around not just socialising over leftovers, but the anticipation of ice-cold Cokes waiting in the kitchen. Even family gatherings featured cola as the uniting force, turning everyday sips into moments of nostalgic bonding. And so, as you close your eyes and envision this sugary utopia, think, how many moments today are guided by that original buzz from a Coca-Cola? The laughter ringing out, the crunch of ice against glass, the heated debates over whose drink is best. Could there ever really be a better elixir for youth than a cold bottle of Coke shared with friends? While future generations may opt for healthier choices, in truth, nothing quite matched the vibrant chaos of those fateful teenage years when Coke served as both beverage and bond. So, here's to Coca-Cola, the original liquid gold that illuminated the smiles and sizzled through the teenage pang of rebellion during the tantalizing 1950s. Can you imagine walking into school, not with the latest fashion trends, but carrying a Coca-Cola like it was a trophy? That's right. Suddenly, it was less about having a pair of snazzy shoes, and more about how many Cokes you could crush at lunchtime. It was like an unsanctioned version of the Olympics where the medals were fizzy and the only sport was who can hold their fizzy drink first. The cafeteria became a battleground, with soda aficionados surveying their territory, each clutching their prized bottles of Coca-Cola like modern-day knights, with goblets full of liquid victory. As you stroll down the linoleum-tiled corridors, the sound of tinkling glass bottles was like an anthem of youth. Fellow students would flash glances like they were contestants on a game show, silently sizing up each other's loyalty to that beloved sugary elixir. The social hierarchy shifted, with Coke drinkers sitting atop the throne of coolness, and those clutching the dreaded fruit punch bottles looking downcast as if they were forced to wear last season's sweater. Being caught with a different brand. A tactical disaster of epic proportions. I mean, how do you even explain that at the soda council meetings that took place behind the bleachers? Lunchtime was where the real competition unfolded. Flipping open your Coca-Cola was akin to the sound of a starting gun. Everyone eagerly gathered around, eyes wide with anticipation, as if the ensuing ritual of fizz and sugar could somehow determine the pecking order of the whole school year. Each sip was echoed by gasps and laughter, the classic, "Did you see how quick he chugged that?" ringing out over the clamour of plastic trays and clattering cutlery. Let's not forget the craftsmanship imbued within the act of consuming a cold Coke. Kids would have their own techniques. There were the strategists who would turn their bottles upside down to avoid being caught with excess foam, because nothing says social suicide like spilling sticky soda on precious footwear. Others perfected the two-hand chug, demonstrating the prowess of a Coca-Cola champion, while also minimising the risk of cheek-splitting bubbles. Students exchanged tips like seasoned athletes. If you only inhale every third sip, you can go longer, dreaming of glory in the kingdom of a lunchtime. But the Coca-Cola phenomenon was not limited merely to lunchtime endeavours. It extended far beyond the cafeteria doors. You could spot students decked out in Coke gear, t-shirts splashed with quirky slogans, caps bedecked with bottle openers, and backpacks shaped like vintage soda bottles. It was less about branding and more akin to the teenage version of tribal tattoos. Each item became a badge of honour, a testament to one's level of devotion to the sparkling drink. And guess what? Parents were often complicit in this fizzy takeover. You could picture a family trip to the store where mum would stop in the produce aisle, carefully weighing apples, only for the child to enthusiastically point toward the soda section, as though summoning forth the powers of the universe. "Hey Mom, wouldn't it be great to stock up on a few 12-packs of Coca-Cola?" While they meant well, encouraging these demands was like giving a shark a small snack right before jumping in the water. With the rise of the teen consumer culture, Coca-Cola also had a remarkable ability to transform mundane get-togethers into exhilarating social events. House parties were no longer about Jell-O shots. Now it was about the ultimate soda float bars, where teens would compete to create the wildest concoctions of ice cream and Coke, and thus define their legacies in the annals of high school history. I mean, who could resist a root beer float towered high with whipped cream, and of course, a Coke on the side for good measure? It was a soda lover's dream, where calories didn't count and kids went to bed dreaming of sugar-rimmed glory. Yet amidst the joyous flipping of caps and nostalgic sound of fizz, there was also the darker side to the Coca-Cola craze. Conversations concerning the health implications behind this splendid nectar seeped through the cracks of swanky soda culture. Parent-teacher meetings turned into soda-related discussions where concerned adults pondered aloud, is consuming so much sugar at an adolescent age really an agent of chaos? They feared for the fizz-laden futures of their children, as if the presence of schoolyard soda smugness would lead directly to reckless behaviour in the years to come. But back in school, the fear of being deemed uncool kept the magical soda flowing. And so, the complex kingdom of carbonation continued, flourishing on the tongues of eager teens and growing fiercer with each passing day. As the 1950s rolled on, Coca-Cola remained a monument to youthfulness, exuberance, and the unspoken truth that sometimes the most effective status symbol is simply how well you can sip a drink without losing your cool. And as those years recede into nostalgia, we still wonder, what would the high school experience be without the delightful crinkle of a Coke in hand? Truly, it was the quintessential beverage of a generation. The rebellious spirit of youth. Teenagers in the 50s formed secret clubs that rivaled the in crowd, but instead of just gossiping or stealing kisses, they discussed the merits of Coca-Cola's unbeatable taste. Imagine a basement filled with giggles, secret handshakes, and a shared bowl of ice while sipping their sugary elixirs. It was like Fight Club, only way more charming and delicious. These clandestine gatherings were often held in dimly lit basements, where the scent of carbonated freedom mingled with stale pizza, to create an air of youthful rebellion just waiting to erupt. Membership cards might not have existed, but secret initiations undoubtedly did. New members were likely required to down a mini bottle of Coke in one long fizzy gulp, while standing on one leg, of course. I mean, what's better than a little carbonated chaos to welcome someone? Anyone who succeeded not only earned their spot in the sacred squad, but also a bottle opener hung around their neck like an honorary medal. Forget certificates. Nothing said, "You're one of us," like that shiny tool ready to crack open bottles at any given moment. As these clandestine Coke groups spread like fizzy wildfire, their cult-like characteristics blossomed into a rich tapestry of traditions. Meetings might include elaborate taste tests, where the group would debate whether the standard Coke was superior to the classic cherry or the niche vanilla flavour. Surely the debates got heated. Was Coke a refreshing summer drink, or a universal charm for getting through algebra class? Imagine the intensity, like behavioural psychologists going head-to-head over yoghurt flavour preferences. And let's not forget the most critical aspect: movies. Nothing said cool like gathering in a member's basement, surrounded by a fortress of empty Coke bottles lining the walls, while they queued up the latest flick in black and white. Picture this: a group of teenagers huddled together in deep concentration, sipping Cokes while suspending their imaginations through the magic of cinema, and possibly each other's gossip. You know, the riveting tales of who danced too closely at the last sock hop, or who could belch the loudest after a sugar rush. Amidst the laughter and drama of adolescent life, one burning question hovered over these gatherings: what happens if the parents find out? This, my friends, was the classic fear of any teen-led operation. Surely they envisioned the scene: parents marching down the basement stairs, wielding flashlights and frowns, prepared to dismantle their bubble of sugary joy. Alas, elaborate escape plans were concocted. Escape routes leading out of back doors, secret exits through laundry chutes, or, for the particularly creative, absconding through windows while giggling like thieves who just liberated the soda fountain from an unsuspecting grocery store. It didn't take long for these clandestine Coca-Cola clubs to gain attention. Before long, whispers began circulating in the broader teen community, and suddenly these secret societies weren't so secret anymore. As one could imagine, this led to rival factions forming. Yes, my friends, it was an all-out cola war. The kings of Coke versus the cherry bombs became the talk of the hallways. Rival clubs would boast about their Coke consumption, brandishing evidence like war trophies, their stats proudly displayed on makeshift posters featuring ornate doodles and vibrant colours that would most certainly impress even the art teacher. So what about the community rivalry that ensued? After all, what's a teenage club without a little drama? In the cafeteria, groups would throw side-eye glances and playful insults while reaching for their bottles. Apologies over spilled drinks? Not a chance. Those fizzy exchanges led only to more hilarious antics, flipping bottle caps, trying to slurp through a whole dozen straws at once, or orchestrating a dramatic showdown to see who could execute the best Coca-Cola dance. If only they had realised they were unintentionally inventing the viral video culture of today. As the decade rolled on, these little clubs perhaps acted as the perfect laboratory for the future of social dynamics. What started as an innocent indulgence ignited an entire generation's threshold for friendship, culinary rivalries, and spontaneous comedic exaggeration, bubbling over with laughter and camaraderie. While we can only speculate about their antics, we can be sure that memories of secret Coca-Cola gatherings created a sense of unity that echoed beyond the bottles themselves, and perhaps even inspired some future beverage entrepreneurs along the way. In the end, these secret clandestine Coca-Cola clubs exemplified the mad, fizzy world of 50s teenage life, with sugar-fueled celebrations, laughs, friendships, and yes, even the threat of parental discovery. They perfectly encapsulated a flavour of youth that was all about rebellion and camaraderie. And in a way, they brewed the perfect recipe for nostalgia, one that bubbled up in laughter, melted hearts, and left fond memories poured into your soul, much like that last drop of syrupy sweet soda at the bottom of an empty bottle. Now then, if you found yourself swept up in those delightful memories, just imagine what other adventures lay ahead for our teen heroes in the zany world of Coca-Cola. Would they succeed, or would their thirst for fizzy fun lead to bubbles of chaos? Stay tuned. In a world where dating was awkwardly formal, Coca-Cola served as a delightful bridge between cheeks blushing redder than the soda itself. Imagine this. You'd share a Coke with your crush at the drive-in, eyes locked, hearts racing, pure romance, right? Until, of course, someone accidentally tipped their drink and you're suddenly drenched in a sticky sweetness. Well played, Cupid. But this was the 50s. Everything was about carpools, hand-holding, and the sweet nectar of cola coursing through your veins at warp speed, giving you the 1-2 punch of sugar rush and puppy love. Picture this. You're sitting in your boyfriend's vintage Chevrolet, the soft purr of the engine creating a symphony as you nervously unwrap your paper straw. He hands you a frosty bottle of Coke, and somehow that moment is spun into pure magic. Maybe it was the ridiculously sweet fizz that sent butterflies dancing in your stomach, or the sheer thrill of being together. Who knew that sharing a carbonated beverage could hold so much potential? But let's be honest, that sugar rush was like jumping on a roller coaster without a seatbelt. The ride was fun, but was it really safe? The truth is, having soda at the adolescent altar created absurd situations that could only happen in a romantic comedy. You'd take a sip and try to casually laugh, but boisterous carbonation would force you to snort like a pig, unleashing cola in a fountain that rivaled Old Faithful. And oh, the embarrassment! That uncomfortable mixture of laughter and horror while wiping sticky fingers on your new date's jeans. It was the plot twist every teenage rom-com was missing. Coca-Cola was like liquid courage, and it found its way into the hearts of teenagers just like Shakespeare's sonnets. First dates became sacred rituals, and sharing a drink was equivalent to pure poetry. If you weren't at the diner sipping from a glass bottle, you were at the dance floor trying not to spill your drink all over your brand new bobby socks. Of course, you were bobbing to the tunes of Elvis, trying to replicate those iconic dance moves while impressing, or terrifying, your date with your so-called rhythm. Nothing says romance quite like a wobbly, slow dance paired with a near collision with the soda machine. Fast forward to those nerve-wracking moments right before the first kiss, and there it was again. The omnipresent Coca-Cola. You'd clink bottles, share whispers, and slowly lean in, all while holding your breath like someone trying to sneak into the moonlit sky. Did you know that across America, cola was known to spark some of the most spontaneous beauty and chaos of romance? That fateful blend of fizzy delight and butterfly-inducing tension transformed boys into hesitant poets and girls into giggling sirens. And let's not ignore the actual chaos caused by sodas either. Prom night wanders into the scene, where dazzling skirts twirl, and boys in suits attempt to look as suave as James Dean. Amid the twinkling lights, Coca-Cola remained the go-to accessory. But oh, the disaster that awaited. One wet slip, an abandoned soda can, the tragedy of a high heel, and boom! You've turned your magical night into a slip-and-slide competition. First unplanned dance break, you guessed it, Coke explosion, and your date is left either entertained or simply horrified. For many, those sparkling bottles symbolize vitality, adventure, and a sweet escape from the strict social norms of the time. They weren't just beverages, they were a crash course in dating. They facilitated friendships forged over too many glugs and too little ice cream, served as the backdrop for secret moments shared beneath the glow of the moonlight. They could enchant you until the stars shined in your eyes, or leave you humiliated with a face full of fizz, but either way, they added a sparkling layer of joy to that wondrous landscape of youth. So next time someone tries to convince you that love potions are mythical nonsense, just roll your eyes and hand them a bottle of Coke. Because from glittering drive-ins to distinctive dances under the stars, these effervescent drinks were the true love potion of the 50s. After all, who says romance can't come with some bubbles, a tad of syrup, and a light-hearted splash of chaos that made each moment worth gushing over? And who knows? The next sweet sip might lead to an unforgettable first date, preferably without any soda spills. Picture this, kids strolling into diners, ready to order a Coke with a side of sass from the soda jerk. Those quirky mustachioed heroes behind the counter could spin a soda fountain and whip up a creamy soda float like it was an art form. But did anyone stop to consider what happened to the poor jerk after 6 hours of energy drinks and needy teens? That's right, emotional damage. Every jingle of the little bell above the shop door brought in another wave of ravenous tweens, each with a new attitude, a fresh hairstyle, and a relentless thirst for fizzy delight. You'd better believe that after a day of slinging pills of happiness, it took more than a milkshake to soothe those rattled nerves. As you walk into the local diner, the air is thick with the sweet aroma of waffles, grease, and freshly brewed coffee, setting the stage for the vibrant soda fountain in the corner. To the untrained eye, this is mere nostalgia. To a soda jerk, it's a battlefield. The jerk is armed with a spout, a sharp wit, and at least a dozen different syrup bottles that would make any mixology enthusiast weep with envy. In those split seconds between orders, he's calculating how to juggle 3 zany requests while dodging a looming disaster from a rambunctious group of teens who may or may not have foregone breakfast altogether in favour of a mountain of whipped cream topping their cokes. One customer would lean forward, batting eyelids in a rather theatrical manner. "Can I have a cherry Coke with extra cherries?" Another, barely containing their exuberance, would holler, "I want a banana split with not too many bananas, but like, enough bananas, you know." The soda jerk nods affirmatively, masking the mental cacophony of confusion brewing inside his head. Because how, pray tell, do you define enough in banana terms? What a burdensome task balancing creativity against the structure imposed by the pesky health department. No gumdrops floating in cream soda, thank you very much. And don't even get me started on the cleaning up process at the end of a typical shift. Those sticky surfaces become an unwelcome visage of wrath after hours of poured syrup, frantic spills, and the delicate aftermath of sugar-induced hysteria. A floor that was once polished now resembles a scavenger hunt for ants. There's a grape soda stain you could probably sell as modern art at a hip gallery. Ever tried to mop soda off the floor? It's comparable to trying to peel an overly friendly cat off the ceiling after a fright. Drain cleaner, anyone? But the wild spirit of the diner didn't just stop at chaos. It also led to some remarkable inventions, attributed solely to the creativity of the soda jerks. Facing the stubborn demands of exuberant teens, these artisans crafted concoctions that bordered on the absurd. Who knew you could blend violets with vanilla or spin a tornado of mint syrup into a root beer float? Yet there they were, adding sprinkles, whipped cream, and a cherry on top as if they were Michelangelo sculpting masterpieces in the Renaissance. The soda jerk was both the artist and the canvas, often at a price cut good old Uncle Sam would envy. Despite the playful chaos, the soda jerk played an integral role in cultural exchange. In a melting pot society, the diner was a meeting place, a stage for flirtations, friendships, and sometimes full-blown breakups declared over a tinkering ice cream soda. Guys might show off their manoeuvres with a flashy tuxedo t-shirt, while girls giggled and shared secrets over fruit punch floats. It was the in-place for adolescent escapades, so much so that the depth of teenage emotion, both joy and heartbreak, could often be found bubbling up like the foam on a freshly poured drink. Speaking of heartbreak, let's pause to reflect on the jukebox. What a clunky trophy of bygone cool. Each jingle and groove added a soundtrack to the chaotic scenes playing out in the diner. A well-timed Elvis hit could spur an impromptu dance-off among caffeine-fueled teens, where the soda jerk occasionally even became a reluctant participant. Why suffer in silence when you could dramatically deliver a float while shimmying to rock and roll? It was pure entertainment, serving not just drinks but a side of existential teenage crisis with every glass. Ultimately, the life of a soda jerk was more than just serving sweet concoctions. It was the embodiment of youthful exuberance, crossing paths with a melting pot of peculiarities and personality quirks. Sure, it came with sticky flaws and syrupy stress, but also an endless stream of laughter and exuberant energy from those jovial diners. The jerks may have endured emotional roller coasters and fizzy dilemmas, but in the end they were essential artisans, orchestrating one sweet, bubbly symphony of youthful joy after another. And with that, let's remember these spirited souls who gave their all to keep the rivers of Coca-Cola flowing amid giggles and gooey smiles. They deserve a salute for every cherry pit, spilled soda and successfully mixed paravermin daydream. So the next time you pop open a Coke, tip your hat to the soda jerks of yesteryear. Your fizzy history lesson is always founded upon their bittersweet legacy. Despite their exuberance, the adults had some glaring health concerns about this fizzy madness. While kids were guzzling bottles right and left, their parents were probably wringing their hands and clutching medical journals filled with warnings. "Too much sugar," they'd cry, as the teens would shoot back with, "But Mum, it's just so darn tasty." Classic miscommunication. After all, the only numbers that mattered to the teens were the ones on the jukebox or clock, not the calories glittering on the labels of their beloved Coca-Cola. The never-ending debate burst forth at the dinner table. Were these fizzy drinks a slippery slope to diabetes, or simply a refreshing way to quench their bubbling excitement for life? Spoiler alert, it was a little bit of both. Parents, worried that their kids would replace nutritious meals with a steady stream of soda, began to sprinkle tiny doses of guilt into the mix, frowning disapprovingly as their children popped open another bottle. "You know what too much sugar does to your teeth, right?" they'd yell, exasperated, while the teens, their mouths foaming with Coke, would counter with dramatic gestures of rebellion. "Come on, Mum, everyone drinks it. Plus, I'm practically living a commercial right now." This was, after all, the era that glorified indulgence and a carefree lifestyle. Who would deprive their youthful exuberance for a few puffs of surgical sugar science? Meanwhile, the scientists of the day, normally clad in white lab coats and armed with absurdly thick glasses, were racing to unveil the shocking truths behind the sweet, effervescent potion. As soda consumption soared, publications began churning out alarming warnings as if they were preparing for an asteroid strike. Articles mushroomed with eye-catching headlines like "Soda, the cavity catalyst," and "Fizzy drinks, the sweet path to doom." Despite the sheer doom and gloom 3 swigs into a cold Coke, little Timmy could hardly be expected to take such warnings seriously. He was too busy navigating the teenage jungle of Beatles records, vintage cars and sock hopping to bother with dental decay reports. Yet, despite the outcry, the adults were met with a persuasive force. The number of colourful Coca-Cola ads practically blared from radios and billboards, capturing the teens' attention like moths to a bright light. You could practically see the gears turning in a teenager's mind with each ad. If everyone drinks it, and no one seems to fall over dead, why would I stop? It was just pure logic, right? Somewhere in the back of their minds, they believed their teeth could withstand any monstrous sugar tsunami as long as they brushed regularly. Like magic. But did anyone ever stop to think that the same magic also meant asking for an ice-cold Coke every time their stomach grumbled, as Ellie squeezed into her stylish poodle skirt for the upcoming sock hop? She was certain that having a Coke in hand was just what she needed to conjure the courage to ask Tommy to dance. Who needs nutritious food when you've got bubbles of confidence at your fingertips? The adults who had been sounding alarms were, after all, too busy sipping their scotches and worrying about taxes. So what did they know? They had risked their safety for countless unmentionable beverages throughout the years, and now they were trying to ruin the fun for their teenage children. Yes, the 1950s were a time when parents were more concerned about earthquakes and tornadoes than something bubbling away in a glass bottle. Ironically, their teen children were engaging in a collective denial that was monumental in scale. They just don't understand, one may have thought while happily sipping on a glass of Coke. How can they say anything against this? It's as refreshing as summer dreams. And so, the battle continued between parents and their kids over fizzy beverages, adults refusing to concede their cautiousness while teens transformed into defensive wizards, capable of conjuring up endless reasons for their beloved Coke. Of course, deep down, each generation felt the pull of nostalgia, the adults remembering their youthful escapades, the fizzy drinks they once loved, and the rebellion they clung to. The paradox remains, though, was the sugary fizz just empty calories, or did it also hold the essence of joy, youth, and reckless fun? So while the debate raged on over dinner tables throughout America, one thing was crystal clear. Soda was more than just a drink. It was a shared experience, an adventure embraced by spirited youth, even if it came with a side of parental worry. Suburban life in the 1950s was like a happy little soap bubble. Your neatly manicured lawn and perfectly painted fences were just the backdrop to the real drama, fighting over who got the last sip from the family-shared Coca-Cola. Who knew an overly sweet beverage could provoke such territorial disputes? Truly a bubbly Cold War of epic proportions. In every neighbourhood dotted with pastel-hued homes and backyard barbecues, Coca-Cola was more than a drink. It symbolised status, friendship, and sometimes even local rivalries, depending on who had the cooler stocked with the freshest bottles. Picture this. You're lounging in your driveway on a lazy Saturday afternoon, listening to Elvis croon from your neighbour's radio, while the sweet aroma of charcoal grilling wafts in the air. You decide to head inside to grab a Coke, only to encounter a standoff. Your sibling, weaponized with a straw and a mischievous grin, is poised to drain that last precious drop of carbonation. The negotiation that ensues would put any seasoned diplomat to shame. I'll let you play with my model car later if you let me have this. The true art of persuasion was on display, fueled by sugar and a child's desire to be the one to pop that satisfying tab. This soda-centric culture extended beyond sibling rivalry. Friendships bloomed and blossomed over shared Cokes, where the real question was whether you crushed that can with reckless abandon or savoured every fizzy moment like fine wine. The local Little League team gathering at the town park could quickly escalate into an Olympic event, the Who Can Finish the Coke First challenge. As one boy would douse himself in soda after what he thought was a safe victory, the mud squished beneath his feet, and suddenly the stakes rose higher than just a fizzy drink. The honour of the neighbourhood was on the line, but the intensity didn't stop with the kids. Parents, caught in the undertow of this soda-drinking fervour, found themselves elbow-deep in bubbly debates at PTA meetings as mothers discussed the merits of letting their children indulge in liquid happiness. Was it an innocent pastime or an insidious gateway to childhood diabetes? Well, Mrs. Johnson lets her kids have Coke every day. What's wrong with us? Ah, the good old competitive parenting that would have any modern-day mom Googling listicles on how to be a better parent in 10 easy steps. And don't you dare get caught sipping a Coke at the wrong time. Because if there was one rule in suburbia, it was that soft drinks were strictly reserved for occasions, picnics, birthdays, or weekends. Imagine the horror of a neighbour spotting you with a Coke during a mundane Tuesday afternoon. Oh dear, Marvin must be having some issues. He's hitting the bottle midweek. It's a slippery slope. Suburban gossip travelled faster than any carbonated fizz. Yet, amidst the spirited discussions over who could best enjoy a drink, there was a glimmer of joy as teens learned the art of the Coca-Cola float at home. Ice cream and soda were the perfect marriage, with swirling flavours creating even more magic than Elvis himself. Picture this. Your best friend arrives with a big scoop of vanilla, expertly plopped in a glass, before dousing it in Coke like the culinary rebels you were. Each sip became a triumphant declaration of childhood. It was a sugary elixir of freedom and carefree laughter, punctuated with drippy, sticky fingers, the ultimate treasure to find on the kitchen floor. What then became of the iconic drink as the sun set on those endless summer days? As teens marched their way to the corner diner, soda fountain delight rather than the garden party scene thrummed with excitement. All the while, every sip taken became a secret toast to the unadulterated happiness of youth, with the cherry on top. So, whether you were the sibling scheming for the last sip, the parent defending your honour at the PTA, or the kid inventing your afternoon float, Coca-Cola saturated suburban life with sweetness that transcended the sugary taste. Its influence led to friendships, rivalries, and unforgettable summer afternoons forever etched in laughter. Who knew that such a simple beverage could encapsulate the essence of a decade? That's the power of the pop. A fizzy memory woven through time, keeping those cherished moments as fresh as the last and cracked open and shared among friends. Who could forget those catchy jingles? Have a Coke and a Smile became the anthem of the era, seducing millions with its sugary promise. But behind those shiny commercials lay an even darker reality. Real people guzzling fake smiles. And let's be honest, who among us hasn't sung along to one of those horrific yet entertaining tunes while secretly questioning our life choices? The commercials were expertly crafted, featuring gleaming bottles under twinkling lights, crisp, fizzy sounds, and scenes of perfect families happily gathered around the dinner table, ice-cold Coca-Cola in hand. It was the 1950s equivalent of Instagram. Staged lives and scripted happiness, all served with a side of carbonation. As young folk settled down after a day of school shenanigans, the TV flickered to life with vibrant ads showcasing everyone from cheerful cartoon polar bears to wholesome soccer moms, each choosing to pop the top off a bottle of Coke over other perfectly acceptable beverages like milk, water, or fruit juice. It was a marketing masterpiece. Little did they know, most of these stars were just actors hired for their ability to project joy while balancing a Coke in a perfect drink-by-the-pool pose. In truth, they were likely sipping lukewarm tap water between takes, grinning through their rehearsed lines as they sold the romance of fizz. Meanwhile, parents were equally entranced by these jazzy jingles. "Coke is it," they called, chasing after their children with sugary encouragement, as if it could replace their offspring's desire for vegetables. Advertisements skillfully positioned Coca-Cola not just as a drink, but as a lifestyle choice, one that symbolized freedom, happiness, and mild delusion. Your night out wasn't complete without a Coke, you see, because what's a milkshake when the alternative consists of that delicate bubble-bursting metaphor for rebellion? As the backdrop of the ever-expanding highway culture, it became a common sight. A car filled with laughter, friends, and at least a case of Coke meant the trip was bound to be unforgettable, even if their stomachs disagreed later. Speaking of unforgettable, ever notice how jingles hit differently in our brains? As if the sheer catchiness of "I'd like to buy the world a Coke" had the power to transform thoughts into deep philosophical musings on the inherent goodness of humanity. Yes, we thought, everyone should be sipping this elixir of happiness. But then there was the grim side, the reality that the euphoria promised in those jingles often fell short the moment you tried to sprint around the playground after downing 2 sugar-laden bottles. You'd end up clutching your stomach, regretting every sip while your friend zoomed off to another adventure, leaving you praying for a miracle of bloated mercy. Coca-Cola commercials were not just about beverages, they were a complete cultural movement. They represented everything from unity to Americana at its prime. Did you notice how the commercials leveraged themes of friendship and togetherness, making viewers believe that a Coke was a sort of social glue? People were convinced that cracking open a Coke was akin to cracking open joy itself. Yet here's the kicker. Everyone instantly forgot about the next inevitable bathroom break after all that fizzy goodness, transforming blissful moments into an embarrassing dash for the nearest restroom. Who wanted to trade their shiny, bubbly can for toilet time? No one ever admits to that part of the experience, and don't get me started on sticky floors. Flash forward to today, and we find ourselves laughing at those beautiful absurdities, the sugar highs, the family gatherings filled with forced laughter over fizzy bubbles, and the veggie-hating slogans that swayed us into believing Coke was a completely acceptable dinner beverage for children. But, let's be clear, Coca-Cola was more than just sweet carbonated bliss. It was a testimony to the ingenuity of marketing. As ridiculous as it may seem in hindsight, it worked. We were cleverly seduced into believing that every sip was a ticket to eternal happiness. And yet, as the ages have rolled on, some might argue that Coca-Cola began to slip into a different realm entirely. Health consciousness began to break that fizzy utopia. The world suddenly started to question whether or not a sugary drink could really lead to all the joy those commercials promised. But the legacy of that bygone era, it continues to remind us of the relentless power of advertisement, the sticky charm of slogans from the 1950s, and the equally sticky repercussions of chugging 3 sodas in a row. So as we dive back into the carbonated syrup of life, let's toast to the good old days when matters of the heart could be solved with a simple Coke and a smile, and push the inevitable consequences to tomorrow. With all the sugar flowing in their veins, it's no surprise that teens were busting out some snazzy moves on the dance floor. Between soda pops and vinyl records, the youth were practically a walking festival, spinning and twirling with the most graceful ease. These kids danced like no one was watching, except, of course, the entire neighbourhood sipping Cokes from their porches. Imagine the scene. A warm Friday night in any suburb, the infectious beats of rock and roll pouring out from a jukebox while a dozen teenagers show off their best moves. It was less about choreographed perfection and more about sheer exuberance, as everyone competed to see who could shake their hips with the most flair and the loudest laughter. The dance floor was the sacred space of teenage freedom, where every twist and jump came with a sprinkle of fizzy enthusiasm. But let's be honest, those moves were often more reminiscent of a drunken crab than the graceful swans shown in the movies. Picture a bunch of kids flailing about, arms and legs going in directions nobody really intended. Someone would inevitably trip over someone else's feet, sending both tumbling into a giggling heap on the ground. Coke spills and all. The revived energies and enthusiastic squeals echoed louder than the music, creating a delightful cacophony of youthful joy. Who needed modern dance studios when you had your mum's living room on a Saturday night, with a couple of older siblings critiquing every awkward shuffle? When it came to popular dances, the teenagers threw themselves into the latest fads like their parents, diving into a pool of cool water on a scorching day. The twist, the bop, and the frug turned each dance floor into a sugary playground where experimentation reigned supreme. Yes, every kid was risking spitting out their pop while trying to swivel their hips with the kind of confidence that only bubbles in your stomach could inspire. For those teenagers, it was all a matter of style and flair. Did bending at the knees while spinning count as proper technique? Absolutely. Alongside the chart-topping hits of Elvis and Chuck Berry, the local soda fountain played a crucial, albeit sticky, role in these dance parties. It was a 2-for-1 deal. Dance like nobody is watching and guzzle down fizzy drinks as if they were going out of style. But let's reflect. It was not just the taste of Coca-Cola they were addicted to. It was the sense of belonging. Everyone was dancing, sharing their fizz and laughing together. Nothing solidified friendships faster than a shared milkshake, or a well-timed high five after nailing the latest dance move. Coca-Cola, in theory, was supposed to serve as an energizing fuel. However, it was also the perfect catalyst for endless clumsiness. Kids would bounce off the walls, fueled by sugar, with wobbly knees and googly eyes while trying to outshine each other. Silly dance-offs erupted like popcorn, and if someone dared you to do the twist on the floor while holding a Coke, challenge accepted. The results? Horizontal leaps ending with a triumphant crash into the punch bowl, ensuring that the whole neighbourhood would relive this dance craziness for years to come. Perfect fodder for the gossip mill. Yet beyond the laughter and inevitable spills, dances became a rite of passage. Curious teenagers began to find their identities amid circles formed by friendship and competitive spirit. That's right. The dance floor became a barometer for confidence. A shy kid who twirled once would suddenly find themselves thrust into a spotlight. A new identity forged amid the neon glow of disco lights. Daring to take that leap felt as monumental as skipping gym class. Each awkward shuffle pushed boundaries, revealing hidden talents that might never have seen the light of day without the catalyst of Coca-Cola bubbles. As the 1950s progressed, the teen dance movement showed no signs of slowing down. These sugar-infused escapades didn't just stay within local boundaries. They spread like wildfire across high schools and community centres, finally reaching a cultural zenith. Many of today's dance styles owe their roots to this boisterous era when Coke was the sweet sidekick to uninhibited fun. So here's to those cavalier teens of yesteryear, sippers of strange concoctions, masters of awkward dance-offs, and creators of indelible memories. Forever eager to perfect the twist while maintaining a delicate balance of Coke in hand and happiness in heart. The 1950s dance craze was so much more than a way to move. It was a celebration of youth, freedom, and of course the utterly delightful, ever-bubbly world of Coca-Cola. And who could possibly blame them for wanting to burst like a shaken soda on the dance floor, spilling joy wherever they went? The local soda fountain was not just a place to grab a drink, it was a legendary mecca for teenage shenanigans. Amidst the swirling aromas of milkshakes and sizzling fries, you'd find heartthrobs and daydreamers sharing secrets over bubbles bursting in their drinks. Just imagine the awkwardness of trying to impress someone while slurping down a cherry Coke. That's a plot twist nobody expected. It was a maze of countertops, vinyl booths, and a jukebox that belted out the latest hits, making the soda fountain the ultimate hangout spot for kids navigating the roller coaster of youth. But what really went down in those cushioned seats? Grab your floaty and let's dive in. Picture this. The golden hour when the sun dipped low, casting a warm glow over the bustling diner. A soundtrack of laughter, and the clinking of glasses filled the air like a fizzy symphony. You and your friends enter with all the poise of a catwalk model, desperately attempting to strut your stuff while keeping your foot from catching on the rug beneath. Once seated, you gaze longingly at the syrupy offerings displayed behind the counter. A menu decorated with vibrant colours, a veritable treasure map leading to sugary treasures waiting to be explored. Which delicacy to choose? A classic root beer float or a spiral of rainbow sherbet in a tall glass? The options are dizzying, like a carnival of flavours. As you wait for your order, the awkwardness of adolescence reigns supreme. You can feel your stomach do battle with those fries you regret ordering, while trying to engage in casual conversation with the adorable stranger across the table. So, have you seen the new Elvis movie? You stammer, desperately wishing you'd practiced your lines more. You're a modern-day Shakespeare, crafting poetic phrases while juggling a half-melted sundae, that has somehow decided to smudge all over your hands. It's hard to look cool when you're frantically wiping whipped cream off your chin as you attempt to look charming. Because nothing says romantic potential like frothy dairy products all over your face. Meanwhile, the soda jerks, those unsung heroes of high school romance, are working their magic behind the counter. With their white aprons tied snugly and quirky caps perched atop their heads, they wield their soda counters like wizards. Watch as they expertly pour Coke from a fountain, made all the more thrilling by the crackling carbonation that makes every sip feel like a bubbly adventure. Their routines are synchronized. One spins while scooping ice cream, while another flips milkshake mixers with the precision of a well-trained gymnast. Those jerks definitely know a thing or two about the art of customer service mixed with a dash of performance artistry. But the real magic happens when orders arrive. A parade of towering sundaes and frosted milkshakes rushes out, so tall you wonder if you'll need a ladder to reach them. With each drink comes a sprinkle of joy and a dash of possibility. Who knows what kind of conversations or adventures lie ahead? You might catch someone slipping a note to their crush through a sharing of fries, or you might witness the intense negotiation over who gets the last cherry on top of that chocolate sundae. Oh, the sheer drama! Then comes the inevitable moment of honesty. In the midst of sipping on a fizzy concoction, someone leans in and declares their heartfelt truth. I think Frank likes Mary, but I heard he might ask out Linda. And just like that, the soda fountain transforms into a hotbed of gossip. You start to eavesdrop like a clever detective, but quickly realise you're giving your friends the once-over with a side of incredulity. The soap opera unfolding is rivaling anything television could offer. Who needs Netflix when you have a plethora of young love triangles steeped in cool sugar on the other side of the counter? The night may end, but not without the final sweetening of memories, tracing those shared moments in a haze of soda pop and laughter as you exit with happy hearts and sticky hands. This is life in the 1950s. No smartphones, no fancy apps, just a fizzy drink and a sprinkle of hope to navigate the tumultuous waters of youth. As you make your way out, you can't help but feel like every sip was a little piece of adulthood you were starting to claim, one bubble at a time. So here's to the soda fountain, the teenage haunt that served laughter, stories, and the sweet thrill of possibility. Who knew a drink could spark not just friendships, but legends? Now, that's classic Americana. Prom night, where dreams are spun and awkward confessions are made over dance moves that should never see the light of day. And what's a typical prom without the iconic bottle of Coke passed between starry-eyed teens, desperate not to spill their secrets, or their drinks? Stepping on toes and smashing bottles have never felt so exhilarating. Ah, the exhilarating chaos of prom, filled with ruffles, ribbons, and of course, endless bottles of Coca-Cola. As teens navigated the slapstick comedy of too tight shoes and poorly planned hairstyles, the bubbly sweetness of Coke became the unofficial beverage of romance, setting the stage for all sorts of shenanigans. Picture this: a gym decked out with crepe paper and twinkling fairy lights. But in the centre of this sanitised circus, it's the small table with the cooler overflowing with Coke that steals the spotlight. Who needs sparkling punch when you could pop open a classic bottle of bubbly elixir? As teens awkwardly bent down to fill their cups, they might have ended up drenched in the fizz, making them look like confused soda fountains. The perfect setting for a memorable prom picture. But hey, nothing screams romance like sticky fingers and laughter, am I right? Now, let's not forget that this was a time before smartphones and social media turned every moment into a digital nightmare. Teens didn't document their entire prom experience. Instead, they actually lived it, one surreal moment at a time. Can you imagine dancing under the soft glow of disco balls, swirling your Coke-filled cup in slow motion, like a scene from a mildly awkward teen romantic comedy. Meanwhile, your best friend is filming you on an ancient camcorder, forever enshrining that glorious moment when you accidentally dumped Coke all over your date's fancy suit. Ah, the sweet, effervescent taste of teenage catastrophe. While they moved to do the twist, or whatever dance move they thought was cool right then, Coke served a dual purpose, a refreshing drink and a liquid love potion. After all, what better way to break the ice with your crush than sharing a fizzing drink? Hey there, want to share a Coke was practically the 50s equivalent of saying, I think you might be the love of my life. Talk about high stakes. Who knew exchanging Coca-Cola could lead to the kind of nervous giggles that felt like fitting an elephant in a tiny car? Remember that time when the prom king and queen were crowned right after an epic dance-off, fueled by their Coke-induced sugar rush? As they took their first sip of the evening, they unknowingly became a symbol of everything glorious about youth. Unfiltered laughter, hopeful dreams, and that gnawing uncertainty that left your stomach fluttering. And of course, amid the glimmering dresses and neatly combed hair, sheer panic arose every time someone handed you a bottle. Because as we all know, navigating the tricky waters of prep school social dynamics is no easy feat. It's like walking across a freshly waxed floors in stilettos, or more likely flip-flops, because who wants to risk a broken ankle? Now, let's take a moment to imagine the highly anticipated after-party. A gathering filled with thrilling gossip and awkward encounters. As teens piled into their friend's basement like sardines, the unwritten rule of the evening was clear. Coke was everywhere. Somewhere between the laughter and did you see what she was wearing? Conversations lay the unspoken truth that they'd all be talking about their coke-hued nights years down the line. Would it be the time they accidentally spilled a drink on a fellow classmate while trying to showcase their best dance moves? Yes. Yes, it would. It was an era where being seen guzzling Coca-Cola was essential for membership in the high school cool club. Like wearing the right label, but with far fewer awkwardness-induced breakdowns. Teens suddenly found themselves conspired over and consoled by their shared love for the fizzy drink that came with a side of glee. Whether they left prom with a new relationship, survived the night without tripping on the dance floor, or embraced their inner soda-fueled dance star, prom night connected teens through their shared experiences and love for all things Coke. So here's to that fizzy beverage that did more than just quench thirst. It lost itself in the heart of camaraderie, awkward moments, and the hope that accompanied every dance move that left them breathless. Because in the grand scheme of things, every sip brought them closer to a shared memory that would only blossom with age, reminding them that Coca-Cola was more than a drink. It was the quintessential elixir of their teenage nostalgia. In classrooms filled with half-hearted learning, daring challenges always emerged. I bet you can't gulp this Coke faster than I can, quickly turned into an Olympic event among classmates, complete with judging and uncontrollable giggles. Spoiler alert, regretting that moment when your belly starts dancing like a fizzy balloon. Classic rookie mistake. You see, the scenarios were often cinematic. A group of eager teens gathered around, eyes sparkling with the thrill of the absurd challenge. As the tension heightened, a Coke bottle, cold and glistening, was placed in the middle of the cluster. But let's pause and paint a picture here. Those classic glass bottles, charmingly contoured like a vintage old-timey Coca-Cola ad, sat on desks like the promise of summer. Sure, they were sticky, but they were full of potential for chaos. Everyone crowded closer, trying to channel their best competitive animations. The classroom transformed into an arena, with students emerging as bravado-laden champions, daring each other to quench their thirst and dignity. "On three!" someone shouted, the kind of person who wouldn't back down from a dare even if it meant getting soda spewing out of their noses. and with each unholy gasp of fizzy refreshment, doubts faded into laughter as the challengers attempted to submerge themselves in the neon syrupy goodness. "Chug, chug, chug," roared their classmates, turning the mundane classroom setting into an arena of unadulterated joy, camaraderie, and blatant disrespect for personal digestive tract boundaries. Once the countdown began, it was a beautiful disaster. Each competitor grabbed their bottles, flinging their heads back like gladiators of the sugar-coated Colosseum, while the judges scrutinized them with unyielding intensity. Would someone dare to pause for air? Would they pay the price in bubbles of discomfort? The stakes were high, and so were the gas bubbles ready to unleash themselves in a riotous explosion. And let's be honest, nothing ends a duel faster than a rogue belch, echoing through the air like a quirky siren song. But as the last gulp was consumed, and players approached the finish line, aka the lunchroom sink, victory was bittersweet. Who could forget the aftermath? Those brave souls stood, red-faced and puffed up, clutching their stomachs like they'd just run a marathon while juggling pizza, a science experiment gone awry, and dodging raging hormone waves of teenage angst. "Are you okay?" someone would ask, half concerned, half glad they didn't volunteer for the dare. Spoiler, they were absolutely not okay. And yes, it was almost scientific how quickly a chugging competition could escalate into full-scale chaos, involving bathroom breaks, or worse, a completely disastrous case of Coke comes back up moments. Just imagine trying to navigate the social landscape after a bold attempt at winning a soda chugging contest, stomach betraying you like a backstabbing friend. Judgment was harsh and universal. Forthcoming nausea was a sign of honour among your peers, but also an invitation for relentless teasing. "You had one job," they'd chant, whirling around the soda-sodden miscreants whose regretful faces revealed a tale of both glory and despair. But you know what? This isn't just about the plight of daring teen soda chuggers. It's a marvellous metaphor for teenage life itself, pushing boundaries, testing limits, and somehow finding a way to turn every slip-up into a moment of camaraderie. Coca-Cola was more than a refreshing drink. It represented freedom, fun, and the hilariously unrefined taste of youthful rebellion. In retrospect, what was it that really drove these challenges? Was it the simple joy of competition, the exhilarating rush of carbonation racing through your bloodstream, or perhaps a desperate need to impress the crush seated across the table? Injuries be damned! These challenges contextualize the shifting dynamics of friendship in a decade filled with iconic fashion and dance crazes, and thus, through the haze of carbonation, laughter, and yes, occasional disgrace, the era was defined not just by the flavour of the drinks, but by the thrilling moments of community shared over the syrupy sweetness. The Coca-Cola challenge still reigns as an echo of innocence in the quest for glory, where not all champions emerged victorious, but all sang the same jubilant tune under the banner of joy. For nothing quite says teenage escapades like a sugar-fueled contest sounding a bit like the Olympics, albeit with a lot more stickiness and soda content than gold medals. Just remember, the real victory wasn't just about who could conquer their Coke, it was about the shared laughter, the sticky floors, and the unsung heroes who dared to down a bottle as fast as their teenage naivety would allow them. After all, the soda may have fizzed out, but the memories and the laughter bubbled on. Enter the invincible rival, Pepsi. As the 50s progressed, where would the world of fizzy drinks be without the emergence of a competitor promising to capture the hearts of teenagers? Well, uncertainty spread like syrup as teens began to divide into camps, each waving their respective cola flags. It was high school hierarchy where flavour ruled supreme. Here we had the original chugger Coca-Cola, its sweet, effervescent charm making hearts flutter across America. But then, like a rebellious teenager crashing a party with loud music, Pepsi strutted into town with its own promises of the choice of a new generation. It was a recipe for delicious chaos, an all-out cola combat that made for the ultimate refreshing drama. In school cafeterias, the situation escalated rapidly. The cafeteria ladies, already sweating over the impending lunchtime rush, found themselves mediating taste tests at the click of a teacher's fingers. "All right, folks, it's time for the great soda showdown. You have your Coke, you have your Pepsi, and I want to see who can empty their cups the fastest." The kids grabbed their plastic cups as if they were about to receive noble titles. The result? A veritable battlefield of fizz, sugar, and teenage pride, where friends suddenly found themselves on opposing sides of a soda war, eyes locked in playful but fierce rivalry. But let's dig deeper into the madness. What was the attraction? One could argue Pepsi was a bold-faced teenager wearing leather jackets and slicked-back hair, while Coca-Cola was the steady, timeless favourite, like the girl next door, sweet and familiar. Pepsi's marketing team poured resources into celebrity endorsements that would make even the greatest Hollywood stars blush. You had ads featuring everybody from the charming and carefree pop idols to the seriously cool athletes, sliding into the hearts of youths like they were skidding into home plate at a baseball game. Naturally, these slick campaigns drew eyes, ears, and a fair share of hearts. And just when you thought the bubbles would settle, the marketing madness truly heated up. Coca-Cola, with its strategic genius, pivoted and began making its own waves. "Have a Coke and a smile," they sang cheerfully across the nation, crafting an entire culture around the idea that sipping Coke was synonymous with joy. Even Willy Wonka would have applauded that level of marketing wizardry. Yet, every war creates casualties, and soon enough, Soda Fest turned into sugar-fueled skirmishes among friends. "Oh, you prefer Pepsi? That's cute." The rivalry reached the depth of the teenage psyche, as if Coke drinkers circulated scandals and rumours about the ill-fated and lowly Pepsi drinkers. "Do you even know what a Coke is?" one rebellious soul would sneer. "You mean that sugary imitation?" Yet beneath the playful taunts, there was a deeper camaraderie forged by the sheer deliciousness of it all. Each cup was filled with nostalgia, and the Cola War became a battleground of collective memories. Dance parties, first dates, and secret summer barbecues, where fizzy drinks flowed and dreams bubbled. As pro-Cola adolescents stood in defiance of the alternative, an unexpected hero emerged: the soda jingle. Purely glorious, jingles had a way of embedding themselves into memories like the sweet residue of a spilled drink. Children's voices echoed, "Pepsi Cola hits the spot, 12 full ounces, that's a lot," while Coke retaliated with an equally catchy tune, rebelliously bubbling to life. This war became a musical symphony of fizz, an upbeat tap dance that left generations humming along, forgetting the tensions brewing beneath the surface. Meanwhile, soda fountains turned into social hubs for the sparkling clash, where friendships could blossom or dissolve over a straw. Twists of fate created even more thrilling challenges as children brewed up dark concoctions combining flavours, Coke and root beer alongside imaginary bets. "I'll drink 2 if you drink 1, winner takes all." Little did they know they were unwittingly flavour-testing new contenders for the next big soda variation, helping soda companies develop their future menus of flavours, like cherry, vanilla and lime. However, the biggest unwelcome guest to this fizzy jamboree? Health concerns. Suddenly sneaking into the media were alarming reports of severe sugar intake and dentist popularity. Teens attempted to argue, "Coke is life," only to have their claims dashed by whispers of the doctor's waiting room. And yet, during this tension, Pepsi held fast with their Lighten Up campaign, offering skim slivers of sugar and reduced calories. it became apparent that not everyone could manage the bubbly sweetness. Some were just simply in it for the show. As the decade closed, the political landscape began to shift in response to this fizzy feud. Coca-Cola and Pepsi started staking their claim beyond craft, stepping into global markets. Yet even in this global expansion, they remained linked by a bittersweet memory of teenage rivalry, whose sugary scent could still waft from every diner, sidewalk and cinema, echoing dreams flavoured with carbonation and youth. So there you have it, the burgeoning Coke Wars, a fizzy, laughter-filled battleground that saw no shortage of young hearts and competitive spirits, all fueled by sugar, sparkle, and a touch of teenage drama. The beverage that promised a drinkable dose of happiness ended up energising friendships while also nurturing rivalries, an irresistible blend that still lingers today. Who knew a bottle could mean so much? Let me know what you would like to do next, or if you have any more adjustments in mind. While teens were gushing over their fizzy drinks, behind the scenes were marketing geniuses concocting the most delightful campaigns imaginable. Imagine the brainstorming sessions filled with laughter, sugar, and a dream to sell as much Coke as possible. Truly, nothing says genius like turning teenagers into your enthusiastic brand ambassadors. It was a magical time when marketing was less about analytics and more about tapping into the hearts and taste buds of the youth. Think of these pioneers as the mad scientists of the advertising world, mixing fizzy pop with catchy slogans, bright colours, and slightly questionable jingles that still somehow end up lodged in your brain decades later. These cheeky advertising wizards knew they struck gold when they discovered that a soda wasn't just a drink, it was a lifestyle. You see, their success hinged not just on the allure of caffeine and sugar, but on positioning Coca-Cola as the quintessential drink of fun and youth. So while you, as a teen, sipped away at your bubbling liquid joy, you were unwittingly participating in the great American experiment of selling the unsellable, happiness. Do you remember those TV ads? You couldn't escape them, even if you wanted to. They flooded your living room with images of cheerful young folk sharing ice-cold Cokes at parties, picnics, and, dare I say, those super classy sock hops everyone loved to attend. Ah, the sock hop. It was a time when you dance in your Sunday best. Those awkward pleated skirts and rolled up pants, paired with delightful fizzy beverages that promised to quench your thirst and make you the life of the dance floor. Nothing elevates awkward slow dancing like an ice-cold Coca-Cola, right? As the soda began making its way into homes, Coca-Cola's marketing team crafted slogans that echoed through the airwaves as often as Elvis's crooning. Have a Coke and a smile became a mantra of joy, urging everyone to embrace the sugary goodness and spreading that cheerful fizzy feeling to everyone around. From little kids to grandma sipping on her soda at the family cookout, everyone was part of the Coca-Cola family, whether they knew it or not. So the next time you saw someone smile while sipping their Coke, you had to wonder, were they really that happy, or were they simply under the enchantment of a clever marketing ploy? But it wasn't just the advertising that played a crucial role. It was how this magical drink made its way into the very fabric of social gatherings. Picture it, the quintessential summer barbecue. You walk up to the backyard, your nose filling with the charred aroma of burgers sizzling on a grill. As you scan the scene, your eyes land on that glorious ice-filled cooler, and among the fizzy miracles resting there, the iconic glass bottles beckon you forth. Suddenly, a drink transforms into a social event. The clinking of glasses, laughter, and friendly banter create a backdrop for sipping and snacking. Yes, the true genius lies in the lounge of friendship that Coca-Cola symbolises, And then there came the rise of the Coca-Cola truck. This behemoth of marketing ingenuity cruised through neighbourhoods with a kind of flair that turned heads and had kids looking as though Christmas morning arrived early. These trucks came equipped with giant ice chests filled with Coke, treating the neighbourhood as if it were one gigantic soda family reunion. Just like that, every swig turned into an adventure, embracing the joy of Coca-Cola while forging friendships over fizzy indulgence. Of course, parental units, who lived in eternal worry that their teens were crooning too loudly or dancing too closely, provided a contrasting backdrop. To them, sugary soda was less a source of exuberance and more a tribute to chaos. Just look at those kids, they would huff as they dished out back in my day stories, plotting mundane tales of sitting quietly at the soda fountain. Little did these parents know they were merely amplifying the allure of Coca-Cola's campaign. After all, what could be more enticing than the forbidden fruit of youth? As Coca-Cola capitalized on the teen fever, it also created a small army of young brand evangelists. Teens became the ultimate voice of cool, flaunting their love for the drink while sharing their shared Coca-Cola experiences. And just like that, the marketing machine kept churning and fizzing, shaping a cultural legacy. So here we are, decades later, raised amidst the melodies of slurps and fizzy pops, each sip a time capsule of nostalgia, laughter, and endless giggles. And though you might find yourself sneaking a Coca-Cola every now and then, just try not to think too hard about all those teen raves from the 1950s. After all, nothing says, "I'm living my best life," quite like an ice-cold Coke in hand. So go ahead, take a sip. The summer of love might just start bubbling up once more. Let me know when you'd like me to proceed with the next section, or if you have any specific requests. Flipboards and trips to the corner market for more soda. Who could forget the glee of those afternoons spent zipping around with friends? Adrenaline dripped from the wheels as well as from sticky fingers clenching a Coke. Just safety measures. Haha. That's what insurance policies are for, right? Totally worth the risk of the eventual crash. You'd grab your trusty skateboard and head out into the world, ready to burst through the suburban landscape like a tornado of youth, energy, and crazy dreams. But let's be clear, the true thrill wasn't just in the rides, it was the glorious concoction of soda-soaked chaos and questionable judgments. With each push off the pavement, you could taste the freedom. Well, that and a little bit of summer sweat mixed with the artificial flavour of cola. You and your gang would gather at the nearest convenience store, where the air was thick with the heady perfume of hot asphalt and magazine covers that seemed to promise cooler lives than the one you were living. Once inside, the ritual began, everyone digging into their pockets for a crucial quarter, rummaging like squirrels in search of that elusive nut. The sweet sound of ringing metal followed by the faint clicks of the vending machine filled your ears, drowning out the world outside as you watched in intense anticipation as it whirred to life. The light reflected off rows of glistening bottles, each one a beacon of sugary delight. But you had to make the right choice. Would it be original Coca-Cola, or perhaps a daring cherry variant? Decisions. After ensuring you had a proper stash in hand, there was no time to waste. Out you'd burst through the automatic doors like a champion sprinting from the starting line, evaporating into the sunshine with the gang in tow, each of you praying your balance held steady while desperately trying to juggle your provisions. It was less a group of teens and more a send-off of caffeinated warriors, ready to conquer every sidewalk and driveway on the map. No curb was safe. As you sped down the street, every bump felt like an invitation to an extreme sport. You had neither the training for nor a safety net to catch you. Instinctively, you'd cling to your Coke with one hand while the other expertly steered your board. Who needed gravity? It's not like you were aiming for the Olympics after all. The cold fizz evaporated against sun-warmed palms, but the euphoria was palpable, sweet enough to cancel out any worries about crashing. And crash you did, inevitably. You'd hit a pothole, sent flying into a dramatic wipeout, with the Coke bottle erupting in a glorious spray, soaking everything in its sugary embrace, including your friends cackling from the sidelines. It was a moment that could have spawned a viral video today, but back then it was just the perfect punchline to a ridiculous escapade. Brushing off the dirt, you'd get back on your skateboard because, let's face it, the thrill outweighed the wounds. This was youth, and nothing was more invigorating than the harmonious dance of coke-fueled adrenaline and the wind whipping through your hair. Yet there was a science to it, you see. According to unwritten teen laws, the carbonation in Coke worked as an energy supplement for those harrowing skateboard sessions. Want to go faster? Simple. Double down on that caffeine-laden beverage and voila! You were practically flying through the air, at least in your mind. You reached speeds that, on serious reflection, could likely land you in the ER quicker than you could blink. But what teenager was ever deterred by practicality? Probably none. Of course, the authorities didn't often sympathise with your quest for speed. Cops might pull you over, not for violations of the law, but for excessive fun on a skateboard fueled entirely by societal disregard for helmets and common safety. You were told time and time again, be careful, but all you heard was go faster. You lived on that edge, on the cusp between exhilaration and disaster, all the more freeing with a Coca-Cola in hand, your thumbs up to reality. So, here's to the golden age of skateboards and Coca-Cola, where every crash brought laughter, where sticky fingers became a badge of honour, and where afternoons spent flinging yourself off homemade ramps could make you feel both infinite and outrageously alive. So grab your skateboard, grab a Coke. Life is too short not to ride that glorious wave of sweetness and thrills. What could possibly go wrong? Besides that one time you ended up with more grass stains than balance. But such is the exuberance of youth. The unsung heroes, the soda jerks. These seemingly carefree souls spent hours behind the counters, blending drinks and serving customers, all while perfecting their balancing acts. But what wouldn't they give for a day off riding the sweetness of a summer breeze? Instead, they were there mixing secret formulas for things like the atomic bomb, a beverage that could only be described as liquid chaos. Behind the retro countertops, these young adults were masters of carbonation, mixing syrup with soda water with deft flicks of the wrist that could make a sorceress jealous. 1 part caffeine, 2 parts sugar, a dash of I hope I don't spill this. It was a recipe for both delight and disaster. Imagine yourself clad in a crisp white apron and a paper hat, ready to face a lineup of peppy teens buzzing in with pockets full of change. As each order rolls in, you have mere seconds to transform a mere glass into a frosty oasis. But there's an art to this. The secret syrup for the cherry Coke must be meted out with passion. 1 squirt too many, and that young high schooler would be zooming off like a rocket for the rest of the day. 2 squirts too few, and you'd have a soda lover staring deep into the abyss of disappointment hanging on the edge of their cherry-flavoured dreams. So there you stood, perfecting the craft, like an alchemist of sweet fizzy joy. Of course, the soda jerk gig wasn't all rainbows and cherry licorice. Regulars came in with peculiar personalities that could rival the quirkiest side characters from a sitcom. There was Sally, the heartthrob of the high school, who would gaze at you dreamily while ordering her usual root beer float. Next was Tommy, the know-it-all who insisted that the Coke went best with an extra scoop of ice cream, even if it was more of a soda iceberg at that point. Most days you'd be dishing out gossip along with the ice cream, listening to the drama of who dated whom under the flickering glow of vintage neon lights. But beware of the customer who orders a malt while staring you down, as if you've swapped it for pond water. That was a battle you didn't want to win. And let's not forget the equipment, the sacred soda fountain. A complex machine that looked simple, but behaved like the diva it was. It spat, gurgled, and whistled, threatening to spray sticky syrup everywhere if you dared to touch it with a clumsy hand. Each lever seemingly had a mind of its own, and if you didn't know the sweet spots to pull, you'd be drenched in a fizzy massacre. It's no wonder that soda jerks became acrobats, spinning and swinging through the busy hours like pros in a circus act. Their true calling hid behind the counter filled with bubbling drinks and laughter. As the day wore on, exhaustion sifted into the joints, and you'd either clock like a hawk, hoping for the sweet sound of your victory bell signalling the end of your shift. But wait, before you could escape, the telephone would ring, demanding that you mix up a purple people eater, a concoction someone just invented on a whim. What's in that, you wondered? Grape soda, a hint of depression and a dash of confusion. Your creativity would blossom or wither, depending on whether the customer was a daring trendsetter or just someone looking for a bit of nostalgia. And the days weren't without their dangers. There were the sneaky folks who tried to snag a free drink, sweetly asking if you happened to drop a little on the counter to get an extra splash in their cup. One glance at those innocent eyes, and you'd be left arguing with your own conscience. You'd desperately recall your training, the brief but enlightening orientation on the dangers of giving away free soda, emphasising that soda jerks were part of a grand conspiracy to uphold the fizzy economy, lest soda become just another handout in society's broken paradise. Still, amidst the syrupy chaos and the constant flow of orders, there was something lovely about being a soda jerk. You witnessed the birth of friendships, the excitement of first crushes, and sometimes the tears after a heartbreak in the making. Each fizzy drink delivered was like magic, a moment to pause and enjoy, a fleeting sweetness in the tumultuous teenage experience. And looking back, wouldn't you want to be a part of that dazzling concoction of life, laughter, and a whole lot of soda? Yes, please. So here's to the soda jerks of the 50s, the unsung heroes who mixed more than just beverages. They stirred joy into every cup, served bubbles that bridged the gap between uncertainty and exhilaration, and maybe, just maybe, helped shape the future of a generation that learned to appreciate life, one sip at a time. Cheers to you, soda jerk. For a moment, let's dabble in the world of 50s music. Catchy tunes about love, heartbreak, and, yep, you guessed it, Coca-Cola. These songs were practically pouring their sweetness into our ears, so much so that teenagers would take a sip only to realise they were living a musical tale. Who hasn't felt the urge to burst into song while raising a fizzy glass in celebration? It was the sort of time when a simple sip could lead to spontaneous harmonising, performed in unison with friends at the diner, because nothing says friendship like synchronised soda sipping, right? The airwaves were full of catchy jingles that combined romance with a fizzy pop of cola, and teens everywhere couldn't resist the alluring call of, "I'd like to buy the world a Coke," which, let's be honest, should have come with a warning label about the insane amount of joy it could bring. Just imagine a group of teens gathered around the jukebox. They'd throw in a couple of quarters and instantly be transported to a world where a Coke was not merely a drink, but a gateway to summer love. You might be dancing your heart out to Teenager in Love while sipping on a refreshing Coke and, wham! You accidentally spill it on your date like a scene out of a tragic comedy. Ah, modern romance at its finest. Teen dances were the epitome of 50s culture, and what did every teen need to complete those perfect moments? Of course, a bottle of Coca-Cola. Girls in poodle skirts, boys in slicked back hair. Together they spun around the dance floor, fueled by soda and dreams, with every twist and turn drawing them just a little closer. nothing like Coca-Cola as an icebreaker. Taking a gulp would come to represent the leap of courage needed to ask your crush to slow dance. You could practically hear the guitars and drums syncing with the rhythm of their beating hearts, punctuated by the crisp sounds of bottles being opened in the background. As these songs ascended to popularity, Coca-Cola transformed into more than just a drink. It became an emblem of youth culture. The drink was interwoven into nearly every corner of teenage life. Suddenly, high school crushes weren't only about shared glances and casual footsie under the table. No, they also involved obligatory Coke purchases during Saturday matinees. Yet the real wonders didn't stop there. Let's not forget the superbly realistic advertisements aimed at luring teens into a Coca-Cola-induced fairy tale. Picture this. You're watching a commercial filled with impossibly perfect teenagers frolicking on the beach. They laugh, smile, and sip Coke like it's ambrosia delivered from Olympus itself. One dude, in particular, takes a long pull from his bottle and breaks out into a spontaneous jingle about how Coca-Cola refreshes you like the cool ocean breeze. Meanwhile, you're sitting in your living room dreaming of joining them, all while holding a warm Coke that's been sitting on the coffee table so long it's almost lukewarm, a far cry from that luscious beach experience. Even the unsanctioned jaunts into soda shops could lead to musical interventions. In a world dominated by rock and roll, the local soda jerk would often throw in a surprise jazz riff while mixing ice cream and syrup. You'd often find yourself unexpectedly caught in a 3-minute dance contest, with the unsuspecting grandma waiting for her cherry soda. Ever danced with a stranger who had 1,000 stories to share, from the golden age of jukeboxes to speculation about how they still made that perfect cherry syrup? Imagine swaying together, both sipping on sodas until you find yourself twirling in bliss. It wasn't just about the tunes. Coca-Cola became a catalyst for connections. Teens bonded over lyrics about the challenges of growing up and finding love, even if they might not exactly understand each line. They didn't need intricate backstories. All they needed was that familiar sound of a tinny radio playing in the distance as they belted out the catchy chorus. And if anyone dared to join in and croon "You're the one that I want," you knew it was more than just a duet. It was a shout-out to years of friendship, Coca-Cola and dance battles, the likes of which would dictate who ruled the dance floor. So, as we dive even deeper into the sugary nostalgia of this era, overflowing with musical charm and refreshing beverages, let us never forget. Those 50s tunes about Coca-Cola brought sugar, fun, and togetherness to the forefront of teenage experiences. The next time you take a sip of a fizzy drink, just remember, this soda isn't just a thirst quencher. It's a time capsule of squealing teenagers, dance floors packed with heartbeats, and summer dreams sealed with a fizzy kiss. Let me know if you would like any adjustments, or if you'd like me to continue with the next section. While the classic Coke sat firmly in the hands of many, daring teenagers sought to alter the status quo, merging flavours like cherry or lime into their fizzy concoctions. It was an adventurous spirit, bursting the boundaries of traditional taste. But let's be real for a moment. Did anyone really think adding pickle juice was a good idea? Surprisingly, yes. This was a time when everything was about pushing the limits, and if you could concoct something that tantalised your taste buds while simultaneously causing your friends to recoil in horror, you'd achieved culinary legend status. So picture this. A group of brave teens, think leather jackets, wild hair, and a sense of invincibility, gathering at their local diner, armed with a variety of odd ingredients swiped from the kitchen. While one friend rocked the soda fountain, skillfully pulling levers like a caffeinated magician, another would dive into the condiment corner, procuring strange items like mustard, hot sauce, and yes, the oddly comforting tang of pickle juice. The concoctions they created were practically a chemistry experiment gone wrong. or a bizarre culinary masterpiece depending on how adventurous your taste buds were feeling. Ever tried a pickle cola surprise? It was just what it sounds like. Sweet, fizzy, with a pleasantly biting aftertaste. Perfect for those looking to completely redefine the term refreshing. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of how these wild experiments unfolded. The diner wasn't just a place to sip Cokes. It became a laboratory of sorts where flavours danced and clashed like enthusiastic teenagers at a sock hop. Picture a table surrounded by giggles and daring challenges. "How about a root beer and orange Coke?" shouted one overly enthusiastic bandana-wearing innovator, while another raised an eyebrow, clutching a bottle of ketchup like it was liquid gold. The stakes were high, and the soda fountain was never the same after these bold experiments. But the taste test didn't end with your basic condiments. Oh no! Some brave souls took their experiments into the realm of the downright dangerous. Ever hear of the infamous milkshake Coke? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. A huge scoop of vanilla ice cream swirling in a fizzy Coke, creating a creamy classic flavour clash that would either delight or revolt. It was a sweet dream, until someone decided to top it with sliced green olives for that extra kick, throwing the creation squarely into the realm of how did we even get here? Of course, these zany flavour experiments often went viral in their own small pockets of the teenage community. Think underground chatter and handshakes that ended in soda-soaked fizz explosions. But no experiment was complete without an elaborate name, carefully crafted to strike fear or excitement into the hearts of onlookers. The Grenade, one concoction was called, which immediately drew everyone's attention and hesitation. Rumour had it that it was created by mixing Coke with every flavour of syrup available, creating a bubbling cauldron of diabetes-inducing chaos. But here's the kicker. Every time a brave teenager stood at the diner counter concocting these drinks, they were fostering a community. Your group might have appeared goofy, but you were pioneers in your own right. The thrill of the unknown, the anticipation of a flavour explosion, that exquisite gasp when someone actually liked a concoction. It was all part of life becoming a fizzy adventure. Fast forward to today, and we still can't resist tweaking and tampering, trying to relive that exhilarating rush of creativity. You can find quirky gourmet sodas at hipster markets, or microbreweries launching ambitious flavoured brews, inspired by those wild 50s experiments. They might not always include pickle juice, but you still see that pioneering spirit. Audacity and curiosity bubbling together like too much fizzy soda in a shaken-up bottle. In the end, the legacy of those teenage Coke concoctions remains timeless. They taught a generation the value of stepping beyond the safe and mundane. Sure, some flavours were awful, and some combinations might make even the most adventurous palate cringe, but that was the magic, daring to create, elevating a simple beverage into a canvas for wild imagination. From the ordinary to the extraordinary, Coca-Cola experiments became avenues of laughter, stories, and unforgettable memories. So, as you sip on your classic drink today, remember the daring teens who rocked the soda fountain and colourfully altered the taste of their world, one crazy concoction at a time. In a decade of conspiracy, rumour had it that Coke was more than just a drink. It was a hidden mind control serum. Did those bubbles go right to your head? What if, with every sip, you were unknowingly signing a contract to eternal cola loyalty? Just think of it as a fizzy form of brainwashing. We're still not sure how many people caught on. But let's be honest here. When teenagers gathered in dimly lit basements sipping from their glass bottles, did they really think they were part of a sinister plot? Or were they blissfully ignorant, too busy chatting about sock hops and the latest Elvis records to pay attention to the low-level fear that colonization might just be one carbonated gulp away? Ah, but the rumours abounded. Some conspiracy theorists claimed Coca-Cola was originally concocted in an alchemical lab hidden beneath a mountain somewhere in Georgia. Others spun tales of shadowy figures in lab coats whispering sweet nothings into formula mixers in hopes of trapping millions in an addictive, sugar-laden embrace. The truth? Probably a mix of market genius and a touch of plain old marketing wizardry. After all, if you can get the kids to believe they need it to be socially accepted, the golden fizzy river just keeps flowing. And think about it. The power of suggestion was at an all-time high. During lunch breaks, groups of kids would dare one another to guzzle down a bottle of Coke faster than a speeding bullet. With each gulp, a chorus of bubbling laughter would erupt, almost like a secret initiation ceremony into the cult of the Coke. "Come, dear friends," they'd proclaim, glancing conspiratorially about the lunchroom like they were diagramming the local mafia. "Let us drink deep from the fountain of conspiracy. Let's not forget those infamous urban legends surrounding the infamous magnetism of Coca-Cola. Did you hear it can dissolve rust? And what about if you pour it on a tooth? It'll disappear." These stories circulated like wildfire, and suddenly everyone and their grandmother felt an urgent need to conduct science experiments, complete with paper towels and plastic cups, all while surrounded by friends who could stake claims to dubious expertise in the world of fluids. Forget about organic chemistry. Who needs it when you can create a bubbly blast zone right in your kitchen? Then came the ever so tempting notions that Coke might be some sort of secret government ploy. The whispers grew louder in hushed conversation, mostly over pints of soda at parties where conspiracy theory enthusiasts gathered like moths to unfortunate flames. Maybe, just maybe, the government was intent on creating a nation of obedient, raspberry lemonade-flavoured zombies by pushing sugary drinks on unsuspecting children across the country. You can practically hear them strategizing, can't you? Step 1. Overthrow by carbonation. After those exhilarating revelations, rumours about the special ingredients in Coca-Cola started to bubble up like fizzy foam. Were they hiding something? Was this dark caramel colour merely a mask for the real secrets contained within? You could expect to overhear the most ludicrous debates about whether or not they included ground-up unicorns or dragon scales as flavouring agents, all in the name of keeping American teens buzzing with delight. Spoiler alert, it was probably just a mixture of sugar, caffeine, and possibly happiness. But you couldn't prove it, right? And as if things weren't complicated enough, the emergence of crazy ads claiming Coke could cure everything from hangnails to heartbreak ensured its place in the pantheon of strange drug-like products, right next to snake oil. Think of your average high school dance. Most teens likely had at least a couple of Cokes before stepping onto the dance floor, laissez-faire about their potential mind control properties. Why yes, I will have another fizzy beverage. Not because I love it, but because I'm a mind-controlled soda puppet. But here's where it gets truly hilarious. Even as the rumours circulated, Coke continued to thrive. Stores stocked the shelves like it was a national treasure. Schools offered vending machines that practically spouted fizzy gold. Who could resist the allure? The irony isn't lost on us. Teenagers were energetically spiralling through mini Coke raves in lunchrooms one minute, then plotting world domination over a can of the sweet drink the next. What began as casual consumption blossomed into a potent blend of mythology and perceived allegiance. And so, the 1950s danced into high gear with Coca-Cola at its centre, creating a cultural phenomenon full of conspiracies, rumours and bubbling friendships. Perhaps it wasn't just a soda. Perhaps it was a rite of passage, a venture into sunny afternoons and sparkly evenings where the only thing refreshing was not just the taste of Coke, but the friendships forged over successive sips, and where the only brainwash involved was the nostalgia that would burst to life whenever that signature Coca-Cola jingle played. Cheers to that. In a world trembling on the brink of change, Coca-Cola turned into a cultural phenomenon, swirling its way through art, design and politics. It wasn't just a drink for kids, it became a symbol of rebellion, identity, and the 5-cent bottle you could gulp down in one gluttonous chug. Less a beverage and more a liquid state of mind. It was like the fizzy ambassador of the American dream, bubbling over with every gulp and giving rise to a new pop culture vibe that was both refreshing and intoxicating, much like a sugar rush on a hot summer's day. Imagine a clear blue sky and the sound of a distant jukebox, perfectly timed with the sharp pop of a Coke bottle being opened. That was the soundtrack of the 1950s, my friends, and Coca-Cola was the star performer. As young people flocked to the local soda fountains, they were not just reaching for a drink, they were reaching for a sense of identity. Adolescents formed bonds over shared bottles like secret pacts. You could almost hear the camaraderie fizzing as they whispered their hopes and dreams between sips. "You want to share a Coke?" became a declaration of friendship and rebellion. What better way to say I'm with you against the world than by clicking 2 bottles together in unison, creating a delightful shower of carbonation and citrusy hipness. It was like sparkling social glue, bonding collective adolescent aspirations while ever so slightly contributing to their inevitable tooth decay. And who could ignore the role Coca-Cola played in the arts? Everything from Andy Warhol's vibrant depictions to advertising murals painted on diner walls reverberated with the sugary sweetness of Coke's brand image. It became synonymous with American culture, inspiring songs and advertisements that wrapped the drink in layers of nostalgic allure. Anyone coupled with a classic "I'd like to buy the world a Coke" jingle surely had their heartstrings tugged. You could almost feel the camaraderie of the world coming together in that simple melody, so much so that it might have made you think global unity was just a fizzy drink away. But wait, what about politics? Coca-Cola was also making waves on that front. During protests for civil rights, activists would use bottles of Coca-Cola as symbols of unity. The beverage became an emblem of freedom and choice, a choice that, ironically enough, came in multiple flavours that made you question if you were drinking joy or merely another empty carbohydrate. Young people would hand these bottles out at peaceful marches, claiming a sense of shared purpose, as if to say, "We're all in this together, with Coke." It was as if the drink encouraged a collective thirst for change and representation, both physically and socially. As Coke's influence spread, so did the brand's creative marketing campaigns. They tapped into the zeitgeist, showcasing everything from friendship and romance to adventure and joy, all tethered by that iconic red and white label. The imagery of blossoming teenage love, with couples sipping together at drive-ins under the stars, became the ultimate love language of the century. Have a Coke and a smile could just as easily be the question of the decade. Who wouldn't crack a grin while sharing fizzy happiness with their crush? That's right, folks. Life was a series of joyful sips, and it tasted way better shared. But the bubble was bound to burst. With the 1960s roaring in like a wild stallion, the cultural dynamics began to shift. A growing awareness around health and wellness prompted a critical look at sugary drinks. The Coke cans that once represented youth and freedom began to symbolize something else entirely. They became bulging symbols of obesity and unchecked consumerism. The rebellion against the establishment shifted gears, and Coke suddenly found itself in a battle against the very consumers it had once charmed. Just like that, the iconic fizzy sweet drink was suddenly up against the soft drinks are bad movement, an ironic twist considering its role as a beacon of youthful exuberance just years earlier. Yet somehow, through all the criticism, Coca-Cola survived. It might have stumbled, but it also had a unique ability to reinvent itself. Diet Coke entered the scene, promising all the taste without the guilt. Once again, Coke had threaded the needle between indulgence and modern-day responsibility. Here we are today, still sipping on Coke while it continues to weave its way through culture and society. From its iconic ads to its bold presence at events, Coca-Cola remains a staple in snack aisles and dining experiences alike. As the drink continues to bubble and fizz, so does its undeniable impact, reminding us that sometimes life truly is just a can of Coke, filled with surprises, sweet moments, and the delightful carbonation of human experience. So next time you pop open a bottle, remember that you're not just having a drink, you're participating in a legacy of laughter, rebellion, and a cultural phenomenon that's just as bubbly as ever. Surprisingly, as the popularity of Coke soared, so did its heart. Charity events, donations, and sponsorships were suddenly the rage, showcasing how the fizzy beverage could unite and uplift communities. Did it turn kids into philanthropists? Well, maybe not entirely, but it surely made them feel as if one little sip could change the world, or at least their pocket money. With every pop of that iconic bottle cap, the hopes of turning a few coins into a tidal wave of good intentions poured out, mingling with sticky fingers and boyish charm. Teenagers were practically wearing Coca-Cola t-shirts like badges of honour, proudly declaring, "I drink Coke and I care." As we explore the charity craze, let's find ourselves in a community centre where the youth of America have gathered for a Coke-sponsored bake sale. The air is thick with the scent of burnt cookies and sugary confections. Tables are lined with handwritten posters that boast things like "Buy a brownie, save the world," and "Cokes for cause." All this while a young entrepreneur is devising a clever plan to price gouge anyone who looks even remotely hungry. Who knew baked goods could ignite such a fierce competition amongst sugar-laden, strategically placed tables? And you can't forget the awkwardness of asking your crush to buy a Coke and a muffin. You're practically handing her a golden ticket to your teenage heart. You pop open a cold one and try not to spill it while claiming that all the profits were going to feed starving children. Well, theoretically speaking. Truly, it was the ultimate excuse to flirt and retrieve change from pockets without the risk of judgment. Meanwhile, adults across the country were popping in to lend their support, and with cash in hand, well, advice was just a take-it-or-leave-it kind of deal. Suddenly, Coca-Cola was more than just a drink. It became a community corner store, fostering friendships like shaking carbonated drinks before serving them, leading to an explosion of goodwill and fizz. It was said that a can of Coke could make lonely hearts unite, all over a shared moment of that sweet fizzy magic. To the surprise of many, Coca-Cola extended beyond the realms of bake sales and high school events. The company partnered up with numerous charities, positioning itself not just as the drink of choice, but as an economic powerhouse. They wanted everyone to feel like they were part of something bigger. Children were taught that buying a Coke and contributing to that charity event wasn't just about cashing in on the latest fad, it was about sipping on a drink with a purpose. Now that's a marketing strategy worthy of a round of applause, or at least a cheerful burp. Of course, the irony was that while Coca-Cola encouraged charity, it also continued to sell ridiculously unhealthy drinks, turning kids into sugar-fueled fireballs. Who knew a sip could come with unintended consequences? Was it contributing to a sugar-induced frenzy or nurturing a generation of mini-philanthropists? It was like a fizzy game of psychological tug-of-war. "Drink Coke for charity" became the rally cry. But how many were guzzling more than they realised, not quite thinking about their own health, or the number of hyper kids running in circles? To top it off, local talent shows became another vehicle for charity fundraising, each kid with a cherry-red soda bottle held tightly in hand as they sang off-key renditions of Elvis songs, a cacophony of sugary support. Parents clapped, possibly cringing but too hyped on caffeine to show disapproval. Look, even if the notes landed flat, the enthusiasm was evident, fueled by a delightful mix of syrupy goodness and community spirit. It was a sugar-coated reminder that amidst their ambitious dreams they could help others, a glow of altruism sparkling as brightly as the bubbles in their Cokes. As community spirit sizzled through every carbonated bottle pop, it became clear that Coca-Cola was more than a mere drink. It morphed into a cultural phenomenon, symbolizing youth and altruism wrapped up in one delightful package. Every cheerful glug of that fizzy nectar not only satisfied the thirst, but reinforced the idea that, yes, together they could make a difference. Albeit one swig at a time, packed with sweet hopes and bubbles, sometimes over the top and sometimes sticky. But hey, it was the 1950s after all, and everything seemed sweeter in those enchanted halcyon moments filled with laughter, dancing, and naturally, lots and lots of Coke. So the next time you crack open an ice-cold Coke, remember that you're part of a legacy steeped in charity, teenage antics, and a touch of vibrant nostalgia. After all, nothing quite beats the taste of good times, community spirit, and a fizzy beverage that has slowly but surely bubbled back through the years. Just when you thought it couldn't get any better, the 1980s crept in like a frugal uncle with a freaky new diet. Enter Diet Coke, the soda that whispered sweet nothings directly into the ears of the health-conscious and sent a collective gasp rippling through the teen powerhouses. What did this mean for the sugary traditionalists? A battle of the wills for sure. As teenagers scuffled through the lunchroom, their loyal Cokes clutched tightly in hand, whispers of this new, sophisticated soda began making the rounds like the gossip at a small-town diner. "Have you tried Diet Coke?" the cool kids would ask, sipping delicately from their sleek cans as if they were imbibing ambrosia. And lo, the loyal Coke drinkers felt a wave of betrayal wash over them. How could you swap sweetness for a fizzy mirage in a can? Imagine the tension, with each rusty rendering of a classic rock song, burritos being unwrapped, and absurdly large portions of fries being devoured. There stood the ubiquitous soda fountains, but now with a twist of the avant-garde, Diet Coke. It was like watching an old friend get a terrible haircut while boldly proclaiming it was the next best thing. You'd think teenagers would know better than to try to replace their beloved sugar bursts, but somehow the idea of being light kept them coming back, chasing elusive visions of perfect health, wrapped in carbonated delight. Diet Coke's introduction was brilliantly marketed, painting a picture of elegance and modernity. It was like the suave, mysterious new kid on the block who arrived with a leather jacket, promising rebellion without the gut-busting calories. But behind the sleek, slim can lay a frightening array of aspartame, and the kind of artificial flavours that could only be concocted by mad scientists in a hidden lab. The brave souls who took that first sip often felt as though they were signing a contract with their taste buds. You shall never fully experience joy derived from sugary fizz, but you will feel virtuous. And as if that wasn't enough, the 80s came bearing loads of new lifestyle trends that made teenagers second-guess their every bubbly choice. Aerobics classes, health clubs, and a parade of fitness influencers popped up like popcorn in a microwave. Crunchy, crackly, and everywhere. The big question now was, why pop a sugary drink when you could sip something that made you feel like a healthier version of yourself? Cue the eye rolls from the soda traditionalists, who experienced the catastrophic realization that their beloved fizzy lifeblood was now associated with societal guilt and the neck-craning imagery of calorie counting. But we all know that teenagers are not easily swayed. In fact, this soda rivalry transformed lunchtime chatter into a political debate about fizzy drinks, as some declared themselves lifelong loyalists to the sugary original, citing nostalgia and happiness in every pop and fizz. Others would lay claims like ultimate warriors, dangerously eyeing cans while proclaiming their love for Diet Coke as if it was the elixir of life itself. Who could resist such fervour? There were arguments at school cafeterias that rivaled the Williams Romeo and Juliet saga. When one kid dared to sip from the container of a Diet Coke drinker, you could practically see the other kids clutching their classic Cokes in shock, as if witnessing a sacrilege plummet to earth. And as it often happens, the lifestyle competition trickled down into dating. Suddenly, ordering a soda evolved into a precarious balancing act, where one's soda choice could make or break a budding romance. "You drink Diet" were lines that could leave a suitor gripping their heart in anguish, especially if the joy of a sugary Coke was swapped for the unflavoured abyss of a Diet Coke. Was this slender, crisp, a secret code of disinterest? These innocent flutters of romance turned into deadly traps under the weight of carbonated labels. As the decade progressed, the health trends continued to bubble over, with the Diet Coke phenomenon achieving near legendary status. Limited edition flavours, creative branding and flashy marketing campaigns taught teenagers that having a Coke wasn't just a drink. It was now a lifestyle statement. While traditionalists held their drinks close, musing over the days of brilliant, creamy sips, Diet Coke pushed ahead like a hungry lion on the prowl. However, with all this sweet drama unfolding, a question lingered in the sugary air. Did anyone really know what was in that enticing Diet Coke? Is it possible that, in our quest to embrace a fizzy future, we'd traded away our unabashed joy for mystery ingredients in a can? Well, grab a bottle, giggle with your friends, and you might just discover, after all you need is that first nostalgic taste. And who knows, sometimes swapping sugar for aspartame isn't the worst choice. It may even spark new memories during spirited debates at the lunch table, a true sign that pop culture is a deliciously effervescent rollercoaster ride. Are you ready to see how the final carbonation plays a role in this delicious history? I know I am. While American teens drank their way through the fizzy dreams of yesteryear, Coca-Cola started expanding globally. Jobs, taste tests, marketing campaigns. Suddenly, kids in other countries were sipping from familiar bottles, connecting cultures through fizzy sweetness and spiking teenage interest. Who knew that one drink could create a whole world economy? It was like a delightful musical montage, only instead of singing, nations were clinking their Coke bottles together in a toast to capitalism and sugar. Who would have thought that those fizzy bubbles would bubble right their way across the globe, steering youth into a carbonated frenzy? Picture this: a charming little village somewhere in Europe, where the local kids, with their retro bicycles and wide-grinned faces, are gathered around the fountain, slipping open icy cold Cokes as if they were ancient potions. There's Tommy from next door sipping his Coke while inadvertently starting a worldwide trend with his radical Coke and dance moves that sweep through the town like a whirlwind. Social media's not a thing yet, but you can bet there's a rumour mill spinning crazily as kids break into spontaneous dance-offs over the sweet elixir. It's like 2 Cokes and a dance floor, the early years. In Asia, kids discover their very own Coca-Cola identity too, but with a slight twist. What happens when a fizzy drink crosses into cultures rich with history and traditions? Why? You concoct delightful flavours that would make even an average soda drinker question everything they thought they knew about refreshment. Suddenly, you've got lychee, green tea, and even mysterious herbal mixes bubbling their way into Coca-Cola bottles. Can you imagine the bewilderment of a teenager in Tokyo taking their first sip of Coca-Cola infused with green tea? It's like a cross-cultural flavour explosion that is simultaneously confusing and enchanting. Meanwhile, down in South America, the enthusiasm for Coca-Cola is met with a vibrant twist all its own. the drink becomes entwined with local celebrations and fiestas. Suddenly it's not just a drink, it's a party in a bottle. Local legends arise about how the Coca-Cola refreshment can unleash even the shyest of dancers. Who knew a simple fizzy drink could serve as the ultimate social lubricant? You'll catch onlookers fanning themselves in awe as introverts morph into energetic salsa dancers after just one glorious gulp. What's next? A flip of the bottle and a cha-cha, you might wonder. But hey, it's the 50s. Anything goes with a side of Coke and shimmies. But hold on, the magic of Coca-Cola gets even more sophisticated. Showcase the cobalt blue waves of a marketing campaign that sweeps across borderlines, flaunting catchy jingles and graphics that get stuck in your head like an earworm. As kids in the global south swipe through magazines and flip screens showcasing Coca-Cola ads, they see a bright, happy world where Coke equals friendship. Suddenly they're convinced that if they crack open a Coke, they too will belong to this shimmering world of teen camaraderie. It's like the company mastered the ancient art of seduction, one sugary sip at a time. And while all of this soda-induced cheerfulness is brewing, there are adult skeptics lurking in the corners, coffee aficionados and health-conscious folks tut-tutting at their avid munching youth. Can't they see how much sugar is in that, they say, shaking their heads slowly. Just like your classic grumpy dad who still believes milk is the only drink a kid needs. In a twist of irony, the very act of rebellion against this critique echoes loudly in the hearts of children worldwide. The simple pleasure of daring to sip sugary goodness while raising a bottle in protest. Rebel hearts, unite! Yet even as Coca-Cola takes root and expands its territories, the beverage doesn't just bubble, it creates connections. Friendships blossom, dreams ignite, and yes, temporary brain freezes happen as kids engage in monumental chugging contests during summer picnics. Can you picture it? Friends laughing, slipping and shouting Coke from rooftops. Memories are made, sealed with the stamp of a Coca-Cola bottle cap, all while the elders wonder what could possibly be so enticing about sugar water. So, while the rest of the world remains skeptical, teenagers across the globe forge ahead, united in a fizzy togetherness where cultures intertwine like strands of barbed wire, both sweet and also just a tad prickly. Coca-Cola may have started as an American wonder, but it quickly transformed into a global delight, proving that no matter where one sips it, there's power in those ubiquitous bubbles, binding generations, forging connections, and always reminding us that a drink can mean so much more than just refreshment. With the rise of health awareness and alternative choices in the 2000s, dared we think that Coca-Cola's reign could be challenged? People started looking down on the sugary drink like it was a fruitcake at a holiday gathering. Beloved, awkwardly loved, but perhaps best left untouched. Could it survive the change? Or would it become just another guilty pleasure? Suddenly, sipping a Coke wasn't quite the rite of passage it used to be. Instead, consumers were navigating a new world filled with kale smoothies and organic, gluten-free vegan options that sounded like incantations from a witch who loves to jog. Gone were the days of standing at the soda fountain, filled with unbridled joy and bubbly ambitions. Now people were counting calories like they were currency, trading soda swigs for guilt-free waters, flavoured with a whisper of lemon and a splash of remorse. And oh boy, did the alternatives flood in. From healthy energy drinks promising to unleash the beast within, to coconut water that sounded exotic but tasted like the sweat of a confused palm tree, soda suddenly felt like an old-school relic, like rotary phones or VHS tapes. Can you imagine how the soda executives must have felt? They were sitting in their plush offices sipping sparkling water, while wondering if they should start a Coke but with kale line. But hold on, let's time travel back to examine the problem. Remember when Coke was the elixir of life? Nothing made you cooler than cracking open a can during a summer barbecue, feeling like the embodiment of pure American spirit. The label proclaimed fun, youth, and basically the definition of cool. But the turn of the millennium brought a reckoning, and like P. Diddy on American Idol, Coke had some serious competition. Health enthusiasts started preaching a gospel of antioxidants and green juice, as if every glass of kale was blessed by the gods of exercise. "Avoid sugar," they yelled from every soapbox. "Fetch me quinoa," they demanded at brunch. Thanks to wellness gurus, the very concept of sugar had become a four-letter word, and as regular soda drinkers found themselves solemnly reviewing their choices, it was clear the landscape was shifting. As the panic spread amongst Coca-Cola fans, so did the memes about millennials choosing sugary drinks over soda. "Animals in the wild have fewer choices than the beverage aisle," one meme quipped as it went viral. It was as if people felt societal pressure bubbling up like a shaken soda can. You could almost hear the pop of soda caps being sealed tightly before coffee and kombucha took the lead. The new power couple of beverages. Who needs the sultry fizz of Coke when you could have the earthy zing of ginger juice and all the smugness that comes with it? As people embraced these trendy alternatives, Coca-Cola executives found themselves plotting a comeback worthy of an action film. But how? The path was fraught with hilarious attempts, like trying to squeeze the essence of kale into a can. They introduced Coke Zero, Coca-Cola Life with Stevia, a sweetener that, despite its well-meaning intentions, made you wonder whether someone had mixed soda with the plant's leafy cousin in a fit of desperation. Then came the quirky flavours. Coke's foray into vanilla, cherry, and even options with added probiotics was trying to entice customers back. It was a bit like an aging rock star desperately reinventing themselves. Look, we have the same catchy tunes, but now, with a touch of raspberry, keep the party going. It's like when your parents feign understanding of today's music trends, but still can't quite grasp why Justin Bieber is so popular. Meanwhile, international markets saw classical Coke embraced like a vintage wine, as consumers were either untainted by health fads or simply didn't care. After all, life is short. Markets in Asia were toasting to their old-fashioned Cokes while sipping rainbow-coloured drinks with little umbrellas. Suddenly it seemed that Coke's glory days weren't entirely dead yet, but even the fizzling sound of opening a can echoed the bittersweet reality that the world was changing, and soda might just become a relic alongside beepers and flip phones. So here we are, on the brink of a new era in soft drinks. Will Coca-Cola become one of those nostalgic photos we chuckle at over dinner? Or can it evolve to reclaim a seat in the hearts of health-conscious millennials? What does a legendary brand do in an age of chia seeds and protein shakes? Perhaps the only answer is this. The legacy of Coca-Cola might not be about defining a reign, but rather an enduring punchline in the never-ending quest for bubble-filled joy. After all, who could resist the sweet fizz forever? Buckle up, soda enthusiasts. It's going to be a bumpy ride down the sugary road of nostalgia. And finally, as we float away from this sugar-coated nostalgia, let's consider the legacy of Coca-Cola today. It's not just about the drink anymore, but everything that it represented back then. Youth, rebellion, awkward first kisses, and the foundation for a generation learning that happiness could be found at the bottom of a glass. So raise your imaginary soda as we celebrate a brilliantly effervescent history filled to the brim with laughter and bubbles. Fast forward to the modern day, and Coca-Cola is more than just a fizzy beverage. It has become a cultural icon so powerful it could probably run for president. Seriously, if it weren't for a little regulation and the pesky thing called elections, Coca-Cola might actually be up there on the ballot next to the perennial favourites. Vote for Coke, because why not? And let's face it, Who could resist the cheeky advertisements enticing you to grab a Coke with your family while envisioning the loveliest picture-perfect moments? Go ahead and picture it. Rooftop barbecues, laughter filling the air. Just don't think about how much time you've spent unwinding in front of yet another commercial campaign that has absolutely nothing to do with reality. But that's the beauty of marketing, isn't it? It allows us to escape our mundane lives, if only for a moment, giving rise to the fantasy that the joy of refreshing bubbles can fix anything. Just remember the time you hopped into your car after a long day, only to be saved by an ice-cold bottle of Coke tucked neatly in the cup holder. There was a reason that your buddies revered it like the sacred nectar of life. In a world filled with bills and responsibilities, the fizz from that bottle became your beloved vice. A sparkling reminder that joy is just a twist away. Now, let's take a trip down memory lane. Those clanking metal chairs in a retro diner, teenagers squeezed together like sardines as they reached for the glory of a shared Coke, breaking the ice, pun intended, over hysterical jokes about bad hair days and prom dates gone wrong. Maybe it was just a drink. But let's be honest, it also provided the perfect excuse to lean in closer, gripping your bottle as if it were a highly coveted sports trophy. And then there's the phenomenon of Coca-Cola being the Swiss Army knife of parties and celebrations. Have you ever been to a picnic without a cooler full of Coke? Allow me to answer that for you. No, you haven't. A lively summer affair isn't merely elevated by well-placed checkered blankets and the smell of grilling hot dogs. It depends on the perfect bubbly accompaniment to wash it all down. Whether it's drowning your friend's failed attempt at cooking or facilitating impulse dance-offs after too many sips, Coca-Cola keeps things refreshingly uncomplicated. But as nostalgia washes over us, perhaps we should pause to reflect on that undercurrent of tension, the health consciousness that has become prevalent in recent years. The once thought to be invincible Coca-Cola faced challenges as the health food revolution burst out of nowhere with kale smoothies and gluten-free everything. Suddenly, kids weren't just asking for a Coke anymore, they were suddenly into kombucha and quinoa. I mean, really? When did the battle for the best beverage turn into a full-fledged war? Coke versus kombucha, the battle for your taste buds, is a headline we could have all done without. Nevertheless, while many have turned to alternatives, Coca-Cola remains unapologetic, and if anything, it has embraced its role as the classic choice. Maybe that's the secret to its enduring charm. It's still poised to bring warmth, cheer, and lots of laughs, even while considering the zillion variations of health drinks flooding the market. Whether we're indulging in familial bonding over a classic Coke, or nervously fumbling through first dates with exaggerated chugs and overly effervescent hiccups, Coca-Cola is like an old friend who's seen you at your best and likely your worst, yet continues to show up whenever you need some liquid magic. In many ways, Coca-Cola embodies the spirit of resilience, adapting with the times while savouring its delightful past. Teens may still gather together to share jokes, stories, and yes, ultimately a bubbly beverage, but now they do it with more options than ever. Yet, if history teaches us anything, it's the profound impact of those sugary, fizzy moments, and how perfectly they blend, bubble, and sink into the chaos of teenage dreams and endeavours. So go ahead, open a Coke and take a sip, not just for the flavour, but also for the memories, magic, and the sweet reminder that laughter and bubbles are forever intertwined in the tapestry of human experiences.